October, I was like, you know what? I want to qualify for Boston. I just want to do it. I knew it was going to be hard. I just want to do it. What I didn't realize though was when I was going into that and I started prepping for it, I was like, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought. But I realized that when I started running and I started pushing myself more, I started to show up better at work. I started realizing that things are supposed to be hard. And if you want something, it's going to be hard and you got to go after it. And it started, as I got deeper and deeper and deeper into marathon prep, I was like, I can take so many of these little nuggets that I'm learning and transfer it to my clients, transfer it to my work. And, you know, a lot of the clients that I work with, I tell them that if you want something, it's going to be hard.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of Conquer the Day. I am your host, Brian Pickowitz.
And I'm your host, Lindsay Pickowitz.
And today we have the amazing honor to have Katelyn and Stephen Gannon here in studio for this week's podcast.
Snaps for Katelyn and Stephen.
Yeah, so they just got off an amazing personal best, right? So you have personal best in your marathons. And how long have you been a coach at the Fitness Project too?
So I just hit my 3-year mark in May.
Yeah.
Which is super exciting.
And I'm about 2.5 years in.
Yeah. So we've had a great growth history, and today we're going to be talking about all things your journey, all things running, all things coaching, and really sharing some value here.
Yeah, we're excited to be here.
We're so excited to be here.
Ready to rock and roll. Yes, and we are also going to be giving you some insight on how to kind of take your running if you want to get into running. We put out a podcast last week about how to get started with running, but these guys are, as they say, and I would say, elite. So if you want to take your running to the next level or get a little bit more competitive with it, we'll talk about some of that towards the end of this episode as well, so you can take it up a notch. But let's get started on the coaching side of things. So from both of your perspective, I would love to hear the introductory story of just kind of how you guys got into coaching specifically, because you were both in-person trainers. I know that there was a lot of context around the time period and the year, but what actually got you guys into the coaching field? As we'd say, we scooped you up, but what made you make that move?
Yeah, so I'll start. So mine actually started with running. I was just out doing a run, recorded myself, and I had tagged the podcast Conquer the Day, and Brian saw it and he sent me a message. Hey, we're looking for another coach. We'd love to have you on our team if that's something you're open to. And a little nervous. I was unsure. I'm like, all right, I know who Lindsay is, but not quite sure who Brian is, but I'll give it a chance. And I ran downstairs to Stephen and I said, I have this really cool opportunity. Should I go for it? He's like, yeah. And I never looked back. So it's been a journey for the past 3 years, and it's been really great.
And you guys were in-person trainers. How long were you in-person trainers for?
So I started directly out of college in 2015. So from 2015 to 2021, I would say. And then I did it part-time. So I started with the Fitness Project and I did it like kind of part-time. And then I made the leap into coaching as well.
And what's been like for you as you transitioned from personal training to coaching? What was that change like?
Personal training was a way that I felt like I could help the client, but I felt like I couldn't give as much as I wanted to. So being a coach, I feel like I can give the full package, which is just a blessing. So that's what made me make the jump into doing part-time on both, just fully committing to online coaching, which has been amazing.
It's been great. Yeah. And so for you both, obviously you have now this focus on pushing yourself physically with your running, but you're not runners per se. Obviously, Stephen, your running experience is probably a little bit more, let's say, has a longer track record.
Maybe more formal.
Yeah, more formal because you were a college athlete.
Yep.
But you started really with fitness after college, more in bodybuilding. What was your kind of introduction to fitness like?
Yeah. So, you want to take it? Go ahead.
I was actually never an athlete growing up. I was the last person to be picked for the kickball team. I wasn't athletic. So I got into fitness around 2013. I joined a gym and I was like, all right, I just want to try to lose some weight, figure this out. And from there, a couple years later, I met Stephen and I'm like, all right, let's try a bodybuilding show. This would be really cool. Allows us to level up in our fitness and really push ourselves. And once we were over that, we're like, all right, let's try something else. Because the gym shut down during COVID. So we started to get into running at that point around 2020.
Yeah. And, being being like a personal trainer and being in that, like, I was a college athlete, so I wanted to continue to be a college athlete, but I really couldn't because I was off college, obviously. But that's where I found bodybuilding. That's where I found, me and Katelyn kind of linked up, and we were just like, let's go for it.
What did you guys like about bodybuilding?
The discipline, I would say. It was like you have this goal, and I'm a very goal-oriented person, and I just want to hit that goal and do it the best I can.
Who did you guys see first that made you say, "Oh, I want to do that too"?
And what was your original motivation?
Yeah, I'm like,
So
where'd you
funny.
get
I was like on YouTube one day, and I found, I don't know if you remember him, Simeon Panda.
Yeah.
I was like watching his YouTube videos while I was on the treadmill at my first like personal training job. I was a corporate trainer back in 2016, and I just remember watching his videos, and I was like, "Damn, you're a big dude." I was like, "I want to be like that."
I see. Yeah. What about you?
Was it
Unless
Simeon
it was
Yeah, Panda. No, I would say first introduction to bodybuilding was Amanda Bucci. I watched her
Okay.
YouTube videos, same with Buff Bunny, Heidi
Mhm.
Summers, and I was like, oh, that would be really cool. Like, you're not only pushing yourself, but have the ability to start changing your body and learning how you can manipulate your body with different food, different types of training. And the fact that we wanted to do it together was a really exciting opportunity too.
Yeah, we were already like, doing the meal prep. We already
Mm.
had that mindset of like, feel like a bodybuilder. And it's like, if I feel like I needed to do a show to actually say, hey, I'm a bodybuilder. So be committed.
And how far did you end up taking it? Like, what was your biggest win or victory?
So I won one show. I missed my pro card. I had a pose off, missed my pro card by
Oh.
1 place. And from there we did 7 shows. We did 7 shows, but I won my 3rd show, and I was like, damn, I'm that close. And I kept going, did another year, and I just couldn't get it.
You were supposed to go into COVID. Like going into COVID, you had another contest, I believe.
Did
Or
We were like undecided if we wanted to keep going or not. It was, we were like, I think we want to get out of it because it was causing us a lot of like, stress in our relationship and everything. So we were like, I don't know if we want to do this anymore. Then COVID happened. And we were like, we're done.
Yeah. What was your best victory?
So I got first place too, same show.
Oh,
And then I
okay.
had a pose down with one of Lindsay's clients
Yeah.
actually, and she came out winning her pro card, but it was a really exciting opportunity. And the same thing as Stephen, I was like, all right, if we're this close, can we really keep pushing and get this pro card? So we did 3 shows after that. And then 2019 hit, we were like, all right, maybe we'll do one more show before our wedding, which was in 2020. And then we decided against it because it just wasn't going to help strengthen our relationship before going into the year that we were getting married.
yeah,
Yeah.
bodybuilding, man. It just puts. I mean, you got to think your body's under so much stress, and when your body's under stress, your brain's under stress. And then you put one person like that in any place, they're hard enough to manage being around. You put 2 people like that together, it's not so much fun.
Different animal.
I mean, we were doing that when we were in LA, right? And we moved ourselves from New Hampshire. We lived in LA. We were prepping, and that was something that really was challenging to work through. So I imagine that you guys doing that so consistently made it hard too.
Yeah.
7 shows together.
Especially in the time frame, it was like, I think it was like 20 months. We did 7 shows, which is a lot on your body, like mentally and physically.
What made you, well, not what made you want to do running, but where did that idea come from? Because you guys didn't, I mean, you did cardio, but like
Yeah.
on machines, but you didn't do running before that, right?
Not really. I mean, like I said, I was a college athlete, but I was a sprinter. Like I never ran over 2 miles in my life.
In your life?
In my life, I was like, I've just sprinted. We had a goal. We were having like you guys listen to our other podcast. We had a really big issue with food post bodybuilding. So we decided that we needed a new goal because our focus was just solely on, can I eat the most amount of food I can and can I burn the most amount of calories? I was like, we need a new goal. So we committed to doing 10 outdoor runs in the month of May in 2020.
I didn't know this.
15.
15, I'm sorry.
Memory queen over here.
And I think it ended up turning into, we did 28. And from there, we just never stopped running again.
Mm.
And then we signed up for our first half.
When
Oh.
did running, because I imagine because that mindset was eat as much, burn as many calories. Running is kind of a segue to think that way.
Yeah.
Right. It's, you can easily be like, oh, well, because I am expending so many calories. When did you start to shift maybe from that mindset to a healthier mindset? Just
Like fueling your body?
enjoy being an athlete and being healthy overall.
Took probably another year to year and a half, I would say. We did our first half, and I think we still had that issue. We still viewed it as like, hey, I'm burning a lot of calories. I can eat whatever I want. I would say until we ran a shipyard half marathon. We were actually with our other coach, Julia. And that's when it kind of shifted for us. We were like, wow, we're really good at this. Why don't we start actually fueling our bodies the right way? And what can we actually do? Can we perform? And so that was 2022, I think, couple, like maybe not even 2 weeks when I started with you guys.
Yeah, interesting. What was your lens like? Similar to his, or did you have a different experience?
So I had dabbled in running 5Ks since I started my fitness journey. Just like there was this big run in Albany, New York, where I was living at the time, and a friend and I did it together. And we're like, oh, let's make this a tradition. But I never thought of it as something that was a way to perform. I was just like, oh, I'm going to do this for fun. So I did a couple different 5Ks for fun. And then when we made that goal in 2020, May 2020, we were like, all right, let's test this out, see how it goes. And then 2021, ran my first half marathon. And same thing as Stephen. I was like, oh yeah, this is fun. No.
Even though we got in the
fun.
hospital.
Even though I went in the hospital, suffered severe dehydration. So please make sure you're hydrated and don't wear all black.
There it
During a
is.
race.
Don't wear all black.
But yeah, so we ran the half marathon and then we did another one, and I shaved a whole minute off my average time. I was like, oh, damn, pretty good at this. How differently would I start to show up if I started to actually fuel my body for performance? And that's kind of when I had that shift too.
So Stephen, before we talk more about where you guys are at right now, what was it like having your previous history before bodybuilding? I would love to hear more about like what you actually did as an athlete while you're in college, because obviously that is almost like Stephen was an all-American track athlete, right? You're a stud, the fastest man alive.
Good.
And then
Massive
and
quads.
then you kind of pivoted to bodybuilding, right? So you skipped, and then so it's almost like a boom boom, like a leap, right? Between the two. Boom boom. And so for you, what going back to track, what was your experience like in track, and how did that help you when you decided to get out of bodybuilding?
Yeah, so I started running track when I was 15 years old. I was a 200 and 400 meter runner. And when I was a senior, we actually won.
How many feet is that?
Yeah, so when I was a
600,
senior,
right?
yeah, it's like 440
Okay.
actually for 400 meters.
Yard is too.
Yeah. So I won. My relay team actually won nationals, and we were all American. So I was top 50 recruit going into college, and I went to Worcester State in my freshman year. I tore my hamstring, so that kind of threw out anything of I was decent in college. Like I ended up breaking 50 seconds in the 400 meter and everything, and I just never fully lived up to my potential. So then I transitioned into bodybuilding after, and I was like, I need a goal, and I'm sick of not living up to my potential. Did bodybuilding, and then I felt it again. Didn't win, and I was like, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of not living up to like my potential. And I was like, what is holding me back? So that was like my transition to bodybuilding, and then now where I am now today in marathon running is a completely different ballgame.
Yeah. So when you decided to start elevating your goals and fueling your body, how did that actually change your behavior? Because I think it'd be very easy to hear, oh yeah, I started fueling my body, I had this mindset shift, but then what actually changed for both of you?
I would say seeing food as a means of actually fueling your body instead of the way we were looking at it before, where it was like, okay, how much food can we consume and still run but not in a way that allows us to show up and perform at an elite level, as we would say. And starting to look at food as a balanced act instead of, okay, well, I'm going to eat in a deficit during the week and then see how much food I can consume on the weekends. I was like, what would life be like if we just ate at a consistent amount pretty much all the time? And we were able to lean in more to our hunger cues. We were able to feel full for longer, and just start to see food as a means of fuel, not just, oh, how much can I eat?
Yeah, no, and I think that actually it makes sense. So what I hear for somebody listening to is that the day-to-day person would probably perceive food as they're good Monday through Friday, and then they have a cheat day on Saturday or Sunday. That's pretty common language. Like, oh yeah, I cheated, or like, oh, I like went out, I ate a little too much, overindulged. But think of that mindset over the course of what was like 5 years, 6 years, however long you guys were doing it, and shifting that mindset and behavior to kind of even it out. I actually had a conversation with a client about this today where her mindset was, oh, I'm going on this trip, so I'm going to like pick when I indulge. But what that really says is that we see the food or the trip surrounding food.
Yeah.
Right. Like food is the main source of the trip rather than the trip being about all the friends and family that were going to be on this trip too. So the question that I posed to this client, which is a little different in terms of performance, is basically, what would this trip look like if food wasn't even really a part of it other than just taking care of yourself? What would you be focused on instead? What would you be leaning into instead? So in a way, the outcome was kind of leveling out your food, but the mindset going into it and the question was, what if we kind of just saw food as something that fueled our bodies rather than something that we can manipulate and our bodies in the background type of thing? I don't know. Does that resonate?
Yeah, it definitely does. I think one thing that stands out is it was more the shift in how our body looked versus how our body performed. So when I stopped caring about, not that I don't care about what my body looks like, but it's like, oh, okay, I don't need to eat so little and only eat good foods during the week and then eat more on the weekend, because my body is going to change as I perform and fuel it properly. So instead of focusing on the food, it was, how can I focus on what the experience will be like of the performance that I'm doing, in a sense.
And how did this help you enjoy your food? Or how did it actually change the way you lived your life when it came to nourishment and how you cook and how you ate out at restaurants? Because it's not like you guys stopped living your life.
No, not at all.
You still have, variety. It's still something that you use for love and connection, something that brings you guys together. So how did this change allow you to either have more freedom with food or just allow you to maybe enjoy your life more?
I would say, at least for me, and I think Katelyn would agree, that running kind of saved us and actually improved my relationship with food, because we stopped viewing things as, like Katelyn said, yes, fuel, but we still go out to dinner. Like we still will eat, have desserts and everything. But the big thing is we listen to our hunger cues and we realize that if I go out to dinner, that doesn't mean I need to eat this one thing, because I can eat it again, right? And my body isn't telling me that I need, if I burned 1,000 calories on a run, doesn't mean I need to eat 1,000 calories. Because we don't know how many calories I burned.
Yeah,
right?
Stephen, running forever.
No idea. Like, your watch can tell you one thing, right? And it's like, you don't know if that's true. You gotta listen to your body. And if I go out to dinner, I take pride in taking stuff home. That's the big thing. It's like it's a pride. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a pride thing, but it's like I feel really good about it.
You associate a different reward.
Correct.
You change the association, because the reward is oftentimes like, oh, I gotta finish this whole thing, and oh, the food is there and I'm gonna enjoy it more, versus a new association, which is I'm gonna associate just as much enjoyment with not eating at all. Right? It's a change of an internal reward system.
And once that happened, we built a better connection together. Me and Katelyn we stopped focusing on the food so much. We actually had great conversations. We actually had great conversations at our house. We didn't focus on, I need to eat all this dessert right now. Oh, I need to eat all this pasta right now. And saved us.
Mm.
It's a beautiful thing.
That is
Mhm.
beautiful.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have noticed that when I wait too long to eat or when we go out to eat and I know we're both starving, it's a micro example, but it could maybe showcase something that other people would be experiencing. When we go out to eat and we're starving, we tend to only be like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Wow, this is so good. And we literally just talk about the food in front of us. And before I know it, he eats way faster than I do, as most men do. But he finishes his plate, except for Stephen. Stephen and Katelyn are swapped.
I'm the slowest eater. It's so
Great.
funny.
You
Great-
fin- you
Grandpa
finished-
Steve.
Okay.
Katelyn eats faster. But
It's because Caitlin and I are kind of the same.
Yeah.
And then
Stephen.
Steven.
Yeah.
Same person.
Yes. But
Caitlin and I are D's. We're here to eat. We're here to get things done. Give me the
we'll
food.
talk after.
We'll talk after.
Yeah. But if we go out to eat and we're not at like level 10 starvation, we're very much slower. We'll have conversation about all other topics. So I totally get where you're coming from because the whole mindset was food. And so the whole conversation, I imagine, was, wow, this is so good. Oh my gosh, what do you think of that flavor? And it's like not actually talking about anything in life other than like the food in front of you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So for you guys, then now we're in the running world. We've started setting some more elite goals. We did some half marathons. Gotta use that adjective as
Gotta use
many
that, right?
as possible. The key word. So talk to us. We're going to jump for a second to today. What did you just accomplish? Because we did not talk about this yet. So that we went to the beginning of the story, getting into running these 15 runs in a month. And now 3 years later, 3 years.
Yep.
What did you guys just accomplish?
So I had an ambitious goal to qualify for Boston, which is a sub 3 hour marathon, and I nailed it.
Let's go.
Probably the biggest accomplishment. If back to what I was talking about, I was sick of being, not living up to my standard. And I set a goal that I knew was really hard and that I did not believe I could do it. And it was scary. And that fired me up.
And Caitlin, what about you?
So my first marathon was in 2022 and I just crossed the finish line at 3:41:36, which was a 40-minute PR from my first ever marathon.
Hey, and no broken ankle.
No.
No
Just the bloody
sprained
toe.
Yeah, it's amazing. So from that, between 2021 and 2024, how has your relationship with yourself changed through running?
It's a good question. For me, I would say my relationship with myself, I've given myself more. It's pushed. I feel like I've pushed myself more, and it's giving me the permission to like set more realistic, set goals that are so beyond what I thought I could do, and put the work in and actually try to do it.
I like it. So raise the standard.
I would say as a recovering perfectionist, it has been a game changer in the way I see failure. So the way I set goals, I have a very high standard for myself. And if I failed to hit the goal before, sometimes I still struggle with this, but in running specifically, I'm like, oh, okay, what can I learn from this experience and how can I do better next time? Instead of beating myself up over the fact I didn't hit the goal, which has been a really big mindset shift that I've had.
Well, that's so big. I'm curious too. Those are like the here and now, like these are the let's say Easter eggs at the end of the journey, right? Golden nuggets that have come here. When did you start really using running as a tool to develop yourself? Like when were you realizing like, oh yeah, it's changing my relationship with food, but I'm also gaining something about myself? Were there any insights that you had along the way that really helped the way you were approaching either work or clients or yourselves? Like, were there any other insights? Because I think running is such a valuable tool for understanding yourself because you're alone. It's hard. There's no reason for you to keep running because there's nothing that's chasing you. It's completely
that.
internal, right? And so you end up in this position where you are having to work against yourself and you're having to overcome yourself again and again and again. And that's where it can be really valuable. You'll pick up on all these different cues, especially if you're developing self-awareness. So for you, what were some of the insights along the way that you feel like are important for people to know that might just also reflect back things that they might figure out too?
Yeah, so I'm I made this lofty goal of, qualifying for Boston when I know, I was 30 minutes off. My first marathon I ran at 3:49, right? I almost did that by an hour at this point. October, I was like, you know what? I want to qualify for Boston. Just want to do it. I knew it was going to be hard. I just want to do it. What I didn't realize though was when I was going into that and I started prepping for it, I was like, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought. But I realized that when I started running and I started pushing myself more, I started to show up better at work. I started realizing that things are supposed to be hard. And if you want something, it's going to be hard and you got to go after it. And it started as I got deeper and deeper and deeper into marathon prep, I was like, I can take so many of these little nuggets that I'm learning and transfer it to my clients, transfer it to my work. And, a lot of the clients that I work with, I tell them that if you want something, it's going to be hard. And if someone's telling you it's going to be easy, they're lying to
And how many of your clients are marathon runners?
you. Yeah. I've had one.
And so I bring that up because it illuminates, even I think a lot of I think a very small subset of your clients are actually running at all.
Right.
They're doing walks, they're stretching their body consistently. Like we are focused on getting them to do the small habits. Or that's the biggest thing for us. Like we're all elite athletes and we're all elite coaches, but we have the knowledge of psychology and personal development and behavior change to know, like, hey, you start where you are in order to get to where you want to be. So I bring that up too because it's like it's still hard for that person who's not working out at all. It's just they're hard.
I had one of my clients asked me a very interesting question. She's told me, but she asked me, she's like, why do you say you're proud of me when I work out? You're an elite athlete. Why does that make you proud? And I was like, you know why it makes me proud? Because what you did was hard. You can't compare yourself to me. Like what I do is hard, but what you're doing is hard. You have 3 kids. That's hard. You just worked out for 30 minutes. That's hard. That's hard.
It's acceptable.
That's hard to do. And, you can't compare yourself to other people, but, you doing these things, you going for a 10-minute walk, strength training, that's hard. And we all want to do hard things. And it's okay if it's different.
I love that. Much more. It's interesting because I'm like, that's what's changed about Stephen in the last 8 months. Because you show up with much more confidence. Like you're much more, we're good. Like, and even like Katelyn's point earlier, if you hit a failure or something doesn't go your way, you're much more like, okay, got it. Course correct. So kudos. Yeah, good. Go Stephen. That's great though. I love that. What were your thoughts? I can't remember the question now, but
I'm like trying to remember the question.
What I said was essentially, you guys have all these wins now that you can reflect on, like, oh, well, now I'm much less of a perfectionist, right? And those are the here and now victories that you really developed. But over the course, there have been a lot of wins, a lot of personal growth, a lot of insights about yourself. So were there any key insights that you thought were valuable over the course of the last 4 years that running really helped you with? Taught you, whether that was self-awareness, different ways you were thinking, different skills that you developed through that process?
I would say the importance of consistency, because a lot of times it's like, oh, I have a goal and, I want to get to that goal, but it might take me longer than I thought. I actually never thought I would run a marathon. I told people half marathon, I'm good. That's it. But the longer I got into my running journey, I was like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this. And I really like seeing the progress I can make by continuing to show up for myself every single day. And that has also transferred into how I show up for work too. It's like, okay, well, what can I learn here? How can I be more consistent in any of these practices that I have going on? And how can I just keep putting in the effort day in and day out to get better at everything that I want to achieve?
Ooh, yeah, that's great. So let's fulfill our promise that I made at the beginning, which was, if you have listened to Running 101 and you want to get into running, that's great. But for the person who's already running, let's take my brother as an example. We're running Stephen, Katelyn, myself, and my brother are running a half marathon tomorrow.
Not me.
Wish us luck, Brian. And my brother's girlfriend, Christine, and our dog are going to be watching us and cheering us on. But for somebody like my brother who's running his first half marathon, or somebody who's done maybe some half marathons in the past or some 5Ks, or they've dabbled a little bit, what actually has to change in order for them to take it to the next level or keep going? Because everybody's at a different level, of course, but what has to change when somebody is maybe wanting to go further? Whether it's mindset, behaviors, just the way you treat your body, like what are some of those things that are actually important when you make that pivot from dabbling to being serious about it?
I would say there's two big things. The first thing is consistency, like Katelyn said. If you want something, if you want to run a little bit longer, if you want to do a 10K, a half marathon, you just got to be consistent. But I would say the other thing is it's very mental, and you have to, like I alluded to before, it's going to be hard. And if you go into it thinking that it's going to be hard, you're more likely to succeed.
Mhm.
You know that this run's going to be hard. I'm going to be hurt at the end of this run. That's okay. I'm going to get it done. I'm going to feel really good. But those are my two big things. If you can stay consistent, you will see amazing results.
Mhm.
And if you know things are going to be hard, you're also going to see amazing results.
Yeah, it's accepting the hard. It's like,
Yeah.
I know that this is going to be challenging. Alex Hormozi has a really great quote, something along the lines of, I know it's hard, and it's the fact that it's hard that makes me even more excited to do it, because most people won't.
Mhm.
Right? Most people won't, and I will, and that's why I'm going to get what I want.
Mhm.
That's why most people won't get what they want, because they aren't willing to do hard things,
Right.
really hard things. And it's that going against your grain, and also seeing the benefit of that as you becoming someone who moves to the hard thing. It's not just doing hard things for the sake of doing hard things. It's
Right.
doing hard things so you condition yourself, you become resilient.
Mhm. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
So biggest thing that comes up for me is if you hit a roadblock, it's okay. I've had multiple injuries during my running journey. I have pulled something in my quad. I have sprained my ankle twice. And those were just little speed bumps in the road. I
But-
didn't completely, yeah, they were. That's probably
Thank
why.
God.
But they didn't stop me or say, you've had a couple injuries, now give up because you're just not meant for this. Where when I was younger, if I got an injury playing a sport, I was like, oh, well, I'm done because I got injured and that's it. So now it's like, oh, okay, if I hit speed bump in the road, literally or figuratively, you can still move forward. Take time to heal, allow your body to recover, but it doesn't mean you have to stop completely.
Yeah, that's great. And one thing that you guys both said as you were sharing your stories that I think is really important is even setting the first goal. Because both of you, your biggest achievement was set kind of in quiet, just like, man, I'm gonna do that. I think I'm gonna do that. And then you committed to it, and then you started training for it. But I think that one piece I would add to what Katelyn and Stephen are saying here too is if you feel the itch, like if you feel that good vibe of, I like this, like this is hard, but I like this. Something about this is just like giving me something here, which I've heard my brother talk about a lot. He's just like, man, this is just like, I'm good at this. Like I'm getting it. I'm making progress fast. And it's like, okay. So yeah, now you got to set a goal. Now you got to set a goal. Even if you only tell yourself at first, it's like just being able to say, man, I'm going to do that. And then follow through with action, pick the date, right? Register for the race or the Spartan, right? Or the Tough Mudder, whatever that thing is that you want to challenge yourself to do. And then, as you said, once you're in the process, just because you hit a blip doesn't mean that you're not meant for this, which is all in your head, right? Which is a lot of the conversation here, except that things are going to be hard, but don't sabotage your success because something happened out of your control. Right. Which I think is really what you're alluding to with that, right?
Yeah. I mean, after my first half marathon, I went to the hospital, and during my first full marathon, I sprained my ankle in the race. And I was like, okay, am I even meant to be a runner?
You also thought you got lost too. She called me
I didn't
on
know
the
that.
course when
Oh,
I was
no.
finished, and she's like, I think I got lost.
No.
But it's seeing too that, just because those injuries came up, it wasn't running itself that caused the injuries. It was just, it happened ironically while I was running, and that's okay. That doesn't mean I have to stop.
Yeah.
I got lost in a mile. So it's okay.
It's
I
normal
almost
then.
fell off.
Okay.
I almost fell off a
See,
cliff.
remember this?
I was like, oh no.
That D.
So good.
Sending it off the cliff. But this is great. And I think that anybody who's listening to this will find it pretty inspiring, helpful, right? It's just, You got to be willing to do hard things. You have to be willing to challenge yourself, meet yourself where you're at, be proud of what you can do today, truly be proud of yourself, understand that your circumstance is completely different than someone else's you see. And what would you like to ask or
Well,
add?
I'm
to this?
curious to hear, since we did a podcast 2 years ago, a lot of it was around your relationship with food. Did a podcast today, obviously a lot of it's around how you've developed in running. What do you think has changed in the way you think about helping clients in that time? How has your approach to coaching, training, nutrition, helping people make positive change in their life? What have you learned or gained in that? And how do you share that with other people? How do you share that with our team?
It's funny. I met up with one of my clients yesterday, actually, and he didn't know my story about food. Like he had no idea. He thought I was perfect. Basically, he thought it was just like this dude he's regimented. And he just boom, 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 boom. I shared with him that I had this, me and Katelyn both had, we had a pretty poor relationship with food, and the way that I viewed food and the way that I viewed things that I was doing, I feel like it couldn't show up as much for my clients. It couldn't show up in the way like I would talk to them. I would say, it's okay to. I guess I didn't really have the knowledge behind what I was actually talking about. Like I knew it, I have the degree and I know all of it, but I wasn't actually doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, fast forwarding to today, where the way I view food and exercise, it's in
Mhm.
such a healthy way that it shows with like when I coach. It shows that, the way you feel your body is really important, and the way you view food and the way you understand your hunger cues. I didn't even know what a hunger cue was until 2022, right? So things have really shifted since, I had that issue with food. And now it's a very balanced approach. And now I can actually share that with clients. I can resonate with clients more though, because if they're in that spot that I was in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had an interview with a potential coach join our team. And I told her, I was like, I think you're not on the other side of some of the lessons you need to be able to share with clients.
Yeah.
And it's really important that if you're an expert in something, you have to be able to understand the spectrum of what they're experiencing. But you kind of got to be on the other side of it, or at least you got to be ahead of them.
By a few
All
steps,
the things that are happening. And I think that's a really important point of like, I'm on the other side of all this, which means that before I understood it and I was practicing it, but I didn't have it ingrained in me. It wasn't a part of my identity, which means that it didn't necessarily get delivered as consistently or as deeply or as let's say with as much knowledge as you might have had now.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's, I feel like you have to be on that other side. Like I'm not that I'm happy with what happened, but I can relate more to a lot of my clients and to, people around the world, but I'm on the other side and I can teach people how to get to the other side, which is super important.
Went on the hero journey.
What about yourself?
I would say it gives me more of an insight of where clients are. Because when I originally became a coach, I was like, oh, yep, just fitness and nutrition. That's what you give people. That's what they want to hear. Now it's like, oh, how do we actually change their habits? And I had a call with a client who's starting her journey 2 weeks from now. And she was like, well, is it something that you can really help me work with? Like learning my hunger cues. I'm hungry all the time. And I was like, I got you. 3 years ago, I struggled with the same thing. And we will really get into the deep work of how to use the tools and how you can get yourself on the other side. And she seemed on the other end just so reassured that she was in the right place and this was going to be a really amazing journey for her. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, that's great. We're talking about getting to the other side, but when you're at the front of the bridge and there's fog covering the bridge, you're like, there must just be no end. There's nothing over there. Like who on earth gets to the other side of that? And it feels mind blowing to actually work with somebody who's walked the bridge, who's made it to the other side. Now they're coming back to get you and they're going to actually walk with you. Right. And I think that's how it actually feels like, and I know you guys have probably experienced this in some capacity, but when you have a mentor who's walked that before you and they actually come back for you and they're like, hey, all right, here's what you're missing. Here's the next step. Here's the next step. It's so reassuring, to use your word. It's you get certainty and you actually have more excitement about it because you're like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but that person's got me.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of having a great coach. Guys.
Well, we have some great mentors too.
Yes.
We came over the bridge.
You grabbed it.
Is there anything else that you would add or like to ask them?
No, I feel like, what's next?
Oh, yes.
Well, my big goal is to qualify for the Chicago Marathon next year, 2025.
Nice.
So haven't announced it yet, so I guess this is where we're saying
The
it.
official announcement.
We're gonna be running the Bay State Marathon on October 20th, 2024. And
Nice.
Coming to your autograph sign.
Yeah,
We'll be there.
nice.
So I will be doing it as well, and I will be shooting for a 2:51 marathon, which would get me into every single major marathon in the United States.
You're not gonna make sure she gets her face. You're just gonna run it like her.
She'll, that's how she's gonna do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
If we have to be the fastest couple alive, I better catch up with him.
Yes, I love that.
That is our next adventure.
Next adventure. That's awesome. Right around, we know.
Right after the event, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause you're gonna-
Myself, I was like, I know your anniversary is October 10th.
Never forget.
10 days later,
I-
we're running.
Amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So my last question for you two would be, I'm going through the Rolodex in my brain. Oh, what would you like to tell your clients who watch this?
Keep going. Set big goals and never quit, even if it gets really hard, because you're going to be so proud of yourself when you hit that goal. And don't be satisfied with it either, because there's always so much more ahead for you.
If I could share one insight that I think is super powerful during my marathon was hit mile. So for those who don't know, marathon is 26 miles. So I hit mile 8 and my quads hurt so bad. And I had a goal of, breaking 3 hours. That was my goal. And I also knew in the back of my head, I was like, Chicago's 3. So I could do that easily. Mile 8, my quads hurt. I can do that easily. Got to mile 16, grabbed some water. And I told myself, I was like, if I stop again, I'm not going to move. And I hit, so I was like, I'm not going to grab any more. I hit mile 20. And I was like, I think I'll be satisfied with Chicago. I'm just gonna be satisfied with it. And I had this internal dialogue going back and forth with myself. And I was like, it's fine. Just you can do it. You'll have another chance. Just give in to that internal talk. And I didn't, and I just sent it. And I ended up getting what I wanted. My point is that you may want to give up. You may want to stop. You may not be losing that pound that you want to. You may not be hitting your nutrition to a T. Just don't give up. Stay consistent. You can do it. That's what I tell every single one of my clients. That's what I told every single one of my clients.
That's great.
Good stuff. That's a great tie down.
That's the sauce.
That's the sauce.
That's what the secret sauce is made of.
Secret sauce.
You can stop.
Let's learn. It's really good. I mean, it's learning how to see that wall, like that mental wall where you're like, man, nothing is moving right now. And you have a choice. Everyone has a choice, whether or not you say, I'm knocking down that wall, or all right, that wall's there. I guess it's whatever. Everybody has that choice. And that's the beautiful part, is when you can get to that wall and you say, give me a sledgehammer. Let's go. That's when you get through the other
Or
side.
a toothpick, right? Little by little.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
might not be able to, you might not be able to have a sledgehammer. You might not
Yeah,
be
that's
able to
true.
knock it down.
That's true.
But you don't have to walk away from it. Sometimes
True.
you just need to scratch something on the wall, and that's enough for the moment. And then you go and you say, well, maybe I pick at this side a little bit. And then little by little, you start to see like, oh, well, I scratched at the wall and something did come off.
True.
So it's like, yeah, you might have a sledgehammer, you might have a
And then
toothpick.
somebody might come from the outside and give you a sledgehammer.
Yeah, someone might hand you that eventually,
Great
show you
little-
exactly how it's done.
Yes.
The key piece here is understanding that you aren't your thoughts, you aren't your emotions, you aren't what you feel. Just because it feels hard does not mean that you are going to have to identify with that hardness and quit, right? You can separate yourself, you can observe your thoughts, you can observe your emotions, you can observe what's happening, and then you can change. I had a client yesterday who it's like, oh my gosh, like it's so hard for me to kind of work through this challenge he was having in his business. And I said, well, you have to recognize the pattern, you have to recognize the state, you have to recognize the story, and just observe it. And then you can direct it. But if you're not conscious of what's happening, whether that's in a run or when you're sitting down on the couch and you want to, relax because it's been a stressful day at work and you deserve a glass of wine. Whatever that story is, if you can separate yourself from it and you can observe it and you can become conscious of it, then you can redirect your focus. You can take a new action. It's the whole process. And that's why I say it can be a toothpick, it can be a hammer, it can be a sledgehammer, it can be as small or big as you need it to be. But there's ways through.
Absolutely. With that said, we're going to wrap up here. Thank you for joining us, Katelyn and Stephen, for being patient while we set up this lovely little studio space here. And we hope you guys enjoyed it and got to say everything that you wanted to say to your
Thank you
peers.
for
It
having
was
us.
awesome. Thank you for having us.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes,
And for those of you listening, you heard them. Stay focused. Don't give up on that goal you have. Keep striving, keep challenging yourself, especially mentally, to take care of you. Keep setting high goals. Don't ever be satisfied by them. Always find that little bit more that you've got inside of you. And with that, go out and conquer your day.
Cheers.